Well, it looks like we have Ronnie Kenyon from Amarillo here today on the phone. Ronnie, how are you?
I'm great, man. Good to hear from you guys.
Yeah. How can we help you today?
Well, Brant and I seem to see things on the same page, a lot of this stuff, but we're curious about the voting machines. And, there were so many rumors in the last cycle that, our votes wound up going through Spain and through the internet, and all that stuff's not supposed to be true. But I'm one of these conspiracy guys, and I can't imagine Sleepy Joe got 81 million votes in his basement. I don't see it. He didn't get more votes than Obama. There's no way. So we feel like the cheek was on. I don't know, and that makes you a kook, a tinfoil hat, and all that this day and age. But I don't feel like that was a legit election, and I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, if people understood how the machines work, they would be appalled. But the average person, I think, doesn't want to admit. I don't think they want to know. But we've been working on this. I've been working on it for 4 years. Right after the day after the election, I said something's wrong because I'm looking at the results from Travis County, and I had just been in Travis County, and I was thinking he was going to win Travis County. But when it showed up 80...
We went to bed and we were winning. We went to bed and we were up. And then we woke up and we were not. So...
Well, what people don't understand is that when you vote on those machines, your vote is instantaneously transferred to the Secretary of State's office. And so because when the EA turns in their votes, what the Secretary of State's doing is verifying their count, right? So that means they already have it. And I've talked to people that know what's going on, and they said absolutely that your vote's being transmitted over the state's private network. And all these states think they're the gold standard of security, but about anybody, any hacker that has much capacity at all can figure out how to get in there. That's concerning.
But we were told repeatedly over and over that the voting machines weren't hooked up to the internet, and we know that was not true. But we were told that repeatedly. I can't even imagine how many times.
Call from 141-568.
And lo and behold, they were. So
it's okay.
Yeah, that's not true, and your elected officials are lying to us, and they tell us that to this day. And they're wrong. And I've asked them about it. And I said, why do we have to have all this Wi-Fi if all they claim the reason they have to have internet is so your electronic poll book, because they believe that all of the voters are criminals and that they're going to try to vote twice. So they don't trust the people, is their logic. And so they claim it's for that, the electronic poll book.
Well, we're in good company because I don't trust them.
Well, I trust the people. I don't trust government. And
no, I absolutely do not trust this government. Love my country, fear my government.
Reagan said trust but verify. I think it should be the other way around. I think you should verify and then trust. And under our current election system, there's no way to verify the vote. So we can't trust it, right? And all I want to do is get back to hand-marked, self-authenticated, tangible ballots that can be verified. It's simple. It costs practically nothing. And the people then will have confidence in the vote. Because if Comrade Kamala wins and we had a paper system, nobody would question it, and everybody would be behind her. But under the current system, you have doubt. I have these reporters call me and say, well, don't you think there was fraud in the election? And I'm like, why do you ask? That's the problem.
I mean,
so the fact
where did
that
that question even come from unless somebody's thinking it out loud? So.
And if we have a system where people think there may be fraud, it's a bad system. And all I want is a simple system.
People won't even show up.
Well, that's what's happening. And 2000, I think it was 1972 and in 2000 were the two largest percentage of registered voters voted in elections. And ever since 2000, the percentage of the population that's voting has been declining. That's after they went early voting, after they went with the machines, and they claimed that it was going to make it easier so more people would vote. That was an absolute lie. I think they knew it. It was a ruse on the public, and the elected officials bought into it. They paid for the machines for every county because nobody wanted them. And it was all orchestrated by Abramoff and a guy out of Ohio named Chris Shea. And a lot of people made a lot of money on these machines, and both of them ended up in prison. So the people that orchestrated these machines ended up in prison. Why are we using them? That's a good enough reason for me.
Got rid of the guy, kept the machine. That's a good deal.
That's right. And I think Chris Shea's still around. I'd love to interview him. But I think Abramoff has died. But my point is, we have a flawed system. We have a bad system. And we can go to a simple system and save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars across the country. But why won't your local elected officials do it? It's your county commissioners that have the choice. They can choose to do the right thing and go back to precinct voting on hand-marked, self-authenticated, tangible ballots that can be verified. And every county in America has the system in place to do it, but they refuse to do it. Why?
They got to be getting directive from above. Somebody's got to be telling them above them. But John Coffey is our elected official out here in the county, and he's as trustworthy as anybody I've seen in an office. He works at the SO, and he's a good guy. And generally, we think along the same lines. But we need to get back to one.
Well, person. You need to ask him.
Dip your thumb in ink, and that's the end of the day. We're not voting twice. I don't like all this early voting. I mean, if somebody's deployed, great. Let's get them voted. But if you just want to vote early so it's convenient, then tough. That's just too bad. If you can't get up and get to the ballot or get to the polls on election day, then don't vote. So you're trying to re-enfranchise these people to come and vote with all this technology and all this stuff. Let's just make it straight up, and then people can vote and we can decide. But let's do it on the same day. Let's get back to basics. Let's do it on the same day, and let's get one person. Let's get an ID, and let's get any of the potential for illegals to be voting in our elections. That should never happen. And
illegals can't vote in our election. That's some misinformation.
Well, I don't think that's 100%. I think they slip through pretty regular, but that's just more of that conspiracy stuff. You have to take.
Well, if you want to unravel this conspiracy, why don't you talk to your buddy John Coffey and ask him why he stabbed his party in the back, stabbed me in the back, lied to us, lied to Ronnie Jackson, and find out because he's the kingpin. And he's the one that's responsible for you having electronic voting. So you need to get a hold of him and find out how he got compromised.
I could do that. I watched you bring up Ronnie Jackson, and I watched him do the same thing to Claudette Smith. As soon as it was his turn to return the favor, and we introduced that guy at the racetrack and put him in front of 2,500 people and introduced him to a huge crowd one night. And we worked with Claudette trying to get her elected as mayor. And then when Cole ran, we tried to get her into that place and Les Simpson comes out of nowhere after crashing a business into the planet, and somehow he beats her, and Ronnie endorsed him, and we helped him. Him, and when he had a chance to help us, he chose not to. So I'm not a huge fan of that guy either.
Well, politics is kind of a tough business, and you're not going to make everybody happy. But to me, when you had somebody that assured us that they would do something, and then they didn't, and in fact did the opposite, and basically ripped the verifiable vote away from the people when we had it ready to go, I think that's pretty egregious. We all have different opinions on who we might.
John was in the middle of that.
He was the deciding one. He told us in no uncertain terms.
I was not aware.
He told us that he told me, he said, Dan, if you can, because I showed him all kinds of evidence of what's going on in the machine with what we did in another county. And he agreed. And he said, well, if you can have a meeting with Ronnie Jackson and me and some other people, and if Ronnie Jackson agrees with you, then I will be behind you. And when the time comes and you want to bring it up again prior to the next primary, we'll vote to get rid of the countywide polling place program. And so I thought we had it in the bag because I gave Ronnie my presentation with him and several other commissioners and community people. And he says, okay. Ronnie says, I'm with Dan. Dan's right. He said, okay. I thought we were done. So when the time came, we put forth our resolution to get out of the countywide polling place program. We go down and we give our presentation. I had testimony from Mildred Darden, who's a Democrat operative, talking about how the people up there in the Heights don't vote because they're afraid of technology and that sort of thing, and other people that had bad experiences with the electronic voting. And I gave my presentation. I didn't really worry too much about it. And when the time came, John Coffey voted against us. Blair Schaefer voted against us, who said before he even ran, when we asked him if he was for getting rid of the electronic black box voting system, he said absolutely 100%. I said, okay, we'll get you elected. We will get you elected. And we did. And then he turned on us. H.R. Kelly said, I spent an hour talking to him in our headquarters office one day. He says, well, if Coffey's with you, I'll be with you. So I didn't give it any thought. But they all turned and lied to us and stabbed their own party in the back.
Feels like somebody got a phone call, and what was going to happen is not what's going to happen now. We've been given a directive. That's a lot what it feels like, and that's a problem that we take outside direction on local issues, and that's a huge problem.
You know, I don't have anything personal against any of them, but to me, we pay them good money, and they refuse to do the wishes of their own party. I mean, it's 100% unanimous.
They run, they get elected, and then all that's out the window as soon as they got the job. Then
that's
now we're going to do what we want.
That's right. So they should have ran as Democrats if they did not agree with the Republican Party. And when they said they're going to do something and they do the opposite, that's a problem. And that means it's time to go do something else and find somebody that will represent the people. Their job is to represent us, not rule us.
Right. And, the Republican Party has become so watered down in the last few years, and I routinely say this, I'm not so much a Republican, I'm a conservative.
Well, it's not watered down.
They're not mutual. They are the conservatives tend to be in the middle somehow or another. Instead of being an actual conservative, they're willing to compromise their values in order to make a deal, just like you're just talking about with Jackson and all these and Coffey and all them. We'll flip flop.
We didn't
really mean it.
Read the Republican Party platform and then tell me that the Republican Party is watered down. The people that make up the party, which are the primary voters, are not liberal. They are very conservative. But the people
I'm a little off base there in saying that it's the Republican Party, but it's
our elected officials. That's right. They lie.
They're backing down at the last possible minute. As soon as they get the job, then it's time to appease everybody else. So I agree with that.
They are misrepresenting.
I wasn't getting at the people. I'm getting at the politicians. That's what
the people who are running for office, who are claiming they're conservative, are not, and they're lying to the people. So we have to clean house in our party and get conservatives to run for office, and we will help them. So if you have somebody that would run for county commissioner, I believe the county commissioners are the most important elective office besides the sheriff in our state. You have your sheriff, which is the key, and if you have good commissioners, then we can clean up our country one county at a time. But the problem is we get retired county employees that run for these positions instead of business people. We need business people who've run a business to get in these elective positions, and then I think they'll have a different perspective and we can clean things up.
Well, when you have a bottom line and you have to turn a profit and you have to feed people, you got people that work for you and you're responsible for all of them. I guess it's a little different than when you go to work for the taxpayer and you have an unlimited source of money, and it's just a matter of deciding how we're gonna spend those tax dollars, and we could never put any of it back in the coffers and just wait and do something productive with it later. We've got it, so we got to spend it. And,
and they should go to zero-based.
Thing with the Republican Democrat thing, neither one of them is going to roll taxes back. Not at this point in the game. That nobody's interested in rolling taxes back. We're interested in how we're going to spend all this money, and that's the difference. How you spend it. We're going to spend differently.
Well,
so I don't see the Republicans backing us up as far as getting these taxes. We're paying through the nose, man. You 25, 30, 35%, depending on how much money you make, and then all the consumption taxes behind that. I mean, what can you go do that doesn't have a tax associated with it? There's nothing. You go, if you want to drive your car, you got to pay taxes on the fuel. You got to go down and give the county money and the state and register and all the stuff that you've already paid for multiple times, and you're doing it again every year, and it's beyond ridiculous. The sheer number that we're paying as individuals, what we're given of our hard-earned. You think about 35 cents of every dollar you make, it's a huge number at the end of the year, and it's not fair. It is not fair, and I don't blame it on I never have been one to blame it on welfare and the entitlement programs. It's not that. That's such a small amount of our tax base, of our annual numbers. But I mean, you think about how much we spent in Ukraine and the things that we could have done with Iran, and then the things along those lines where we could have saved big numbers. Of course, getting out of Afghanistan, as bad a deal as that was, $300 million a day, and we probably should have kept that giant airport over there. But I mean, if you're going to get out, you might as well have the money. So where's that money at? I mean, that's a lot of money, $300 million a day since we left. Where's that money? So we're just spending it different. That's all. Money's it's not coming back to the people.
No, it's going.
And I don't believe it's going to, unless, like you say, we can find a way to really grassroots this thing and get those career politicians out of there.
Yeah, but it starts at your local level. If we clean up our county, then everything will fall into place. That's my belief. But nobody looks at their local community. They all want to look at the national. And that's a problem, because we can't be effective at the national, but we can be effective in our own community. And that's where it all starts.
Well, of course, the people that are voting out here in the county, we want the holes in the roads fixed and the stuff that affects people out here, just the bottom line stuff. And you don't really think of those guys as having, power over the vote and things like that. So.
They have a lot. The county commissioners have a lot of power, and that commissioner's court's critical. And that's the basis of our whole society. And we have to understand that. And that's what I want to do through my We the People Town Square platform, is to try to educate people about how important they are as individuals and how the local government in their community works and who's responsible for what. Because people just don't know. You know, like you just had your county commissioners in Potter County. I think they left the rate the same or dropped it a penny, but they pushed the values up, right, through the chief appraiser. So you're going to be paying a lot more taxes. But publicly, they can say, oh, we didn't raise rates. Yes, they did.
No, they raised the values.
Yeah, that's right. But the average person
gone up about $500 a month, and that's all in escrow. It's all taxes and insurance.
But that money is go outside of a productive capacity and go into a wasteful capacity of government, which is a drag on the economy. So you're taking. That's why we have inflation, because you're increasing the supply of money with no offsetting production. It's as simple as that. And it's a problem, and they will spend more money and hire more staff and more workers and raise their salaries on the backs of the hardworking average person. And it's wrong. We don't need
There's
property.
always been this notion in government that you got to spend it or you won't get it again next year. You have to max out your budget, and then you ask for more and hope you get it. Instead of saying, we didn't really spend all this, we're going to either give it back to the taxpayer, we're going to put it in the bank. We're going to put it in the bank, and when we get ready to build a bridge or do something like that, then we'll have the money. We don't have to send a bond out. We don't have to borrow the money. We can just, pay our own way. That would be really neat, but that's not how we're going to do anything. We're going to spend it all. If it's in front of us, we're going to spend it.
That's a simple solution to that.
It is more human nature than anything. So
just go to zero-based budgeting. That solves that problem. But
that would.
But it's because our local citizens are not getting involved and showing up at their commissioners meetings. If we could get 100 people to show up, they wouldn't have to say a word. Just start showing up at these commissioners meetings and school board meetings and city council meetings, we'd have a different government. Because the problem is people are afraid of their government, and it should be the opposite. The government officials should be scared to death.
The next guy, I try to get out and be active a little bit, but no, I don't go to county commissioner meetings. I've been to a few city meetings, but I don't really live in the city, so I'm not north of town, so I'm not in the city, so I don't get to vote in city elections. But
let's get some
I'm interested. I like to.
Let's get some of your buddies together and let's start showing up. Takes an hour every 2 weeks to show up, and you'll know then what's going on at your county. And then you don't have to have somebody else tell you what's going on. Why do we want to have somebody else tell you?
I didn't know that they shot down the voting thing. I had no idea about that.
Yes, they did it twice. The first time I tried it, I had the votes. But the county judge knew it, and so she wouldn't take a vote and took no action. And so then I went about educating the commissioners. They get it. They know, okay, what's going on. But they still stabbed us in the back. So they don't like.
They got direction from somewhere else. Somebody else called that, and everybody said it sounds like a good idea. And then,
if that's the case,
there was somebody sent them a notice and said no.
If that's the case,
with more power than the elected people.
If that's the case, those people should not be in office and possibly committed a crime.
Well, I think it ought to be a crime anytime you run for office and you promise one thing and then you flip-flop as soon as you get in. And we should have more recall elections when stuff like that happens. Oh, well, you said and then you didn't deliver, then, if they voted that way and just didn't win, that's one thing. But if they just jumped into office and changed their position once they're in, then that can't be right.
Well, I think if you look back at when this electronic voting started and then people get elected and then they know they don't have to be accountable to the voters, because once they're in and they do what they're told, they're going to win. Why do incumbents always win? They almost always win. Maybe there's a reason.
Name recognition, I think, is probably as strong as any reason, and of course the incumbent money.
Maybe not.
And once they're in, they've got plenty of cash. So there's that. Favors, we're always dealing in favors.
If we have hand-marked, self-authenticated, tangible ballots that can be verified, then we'll know and we won't have any question. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. I think the only drawback you could say is somebody would lose control. That would be the big drawback, and that would be not to me and you, but somebody is not going to be in control of all that.
Yep, I think you hit the nail on the head.
And that's it. That's where we're at. Our government is a control tactic. It's not about running the country or the county for the people. It's about who's in charge. Same thing with making money. You know, I think about, I want to be rich. I want to be a multimillionaire. I want to have a lot of money, but I have all the toys that I want. But at some point, when you get, I don't know what the number is, billions, when you get that far ahead in life, it's no longer about how much money you got. It's about how many men you control. And, I'm as capitalist as the next guy, but gee whiz, man, I can see a number in my future where if I got to a point, I could say, yeah, I'm good, and hand it off to somebody else. You know, I don't know. I don't need to continue once I'm there.
Well, so I don't think
it is odd to see the mindsets that take off in this country.
Well, I'm around a lot of people that have been very successful, and they don't want to control anything. I think you tend to have the people that aren't successful, and they end up in government, and they want to control. And that's what's wrong with the Democrat Party, is it pulls people in.
It's not a one-person deal.
They can't produce, they can't perform, so they go into government, become bureaucrats, because they can't make it in the private sector, and then they want to control others. It's a different philosophy and mindset, I believe.
I do agree with that. I do. It's a large group of people out there that want to just keep their thumb on literally everything. It's not just the elections. I think they need to control every aspect of every day. So
yeah. Well, you have producers.
You know, we have to have licenses to work. Occupational licenses are kind of a boondoggle. You know, I got to go to the state and get a license so I can go to the city and ask permission. How about one or the other, or neither?
But why don't they have to have a license?
Let supply and demand take care of that. It's ironclad. It always has been. I mean, if you do a lousy job, you won't have any more work. I don't really need a license to prove that.
Well, but why don't
occupational licenses are that way?
Why don't media people have to have a license? Why don't politicians have to have a license? Why don't bureaucrats have to have a license?
Because they're the ones telling you got to have a license.
But that means that's more. That's why I think they should be the ones to have a license. If they're going to tell other people they have to have a license, we've got everything backwards, is what I'm saying. So those are the people that should be licensed, because we need to make sure they have the proper ethics and training to make good, rational decisions for others.
And a way to snap them back, and something to hold over their head to snap them back. And go, oh no, you can't just go in front of 1,000 people and lie. Yeah. We're calling you out on that. You're going to be censored, and if you get censored a couple of times, you're going to be fired.
Yeah,
it really ought to be as simple as that. But nobody gets fired in the government, man. It never happens.
Not
Once
under.
They're in. Till they don't want to be anymore. So it's pretty much that way.
But let's change it.
Man, I'm down.
Now, we had a few people 250 years ago that said, we're not putting up with this anymore. And they solved the problem, and they created our government. And then the people today take it for granted and don't want to stand up and keep the system that our founding fathers created for us.